You wake up at 3 a.m. to a low metal groan running through the wall behind your head. For half a second, you think something's wrong with a 100,000-ton ship. Then you remember, it's docked, tied up, not moving at all. This is supposed to be the easiest night of your entire contract, and somehow it's the one that just jolted you awake. Why does docking, the calmest moment of the job on paper, turn into the worst night of a cruise ship crew member's week? Here's the assumption almost every passenger makes. At sea, the ship rocks, the engines run, and stabilizers work nonstop to keep everything level. So once you're tied to a pier, everything should settle. Engines throttle back, motion stops. It should be the easiest sleep of the week. But that assumption falls apart the second you understand what a cruise ship actually becomes once it touches a dock. It doesn't power down, it turns into an entirely different machine, and almost all of it happens once the sun goes down. At sea, motion is smooth and predictable. Stabilizers cancel the roll. Engines hold one steady load, and the body adapts to it, almost like being rocked in a cradle. Sailors call it having your sea legs. But sea legs work both ways. The same adaptation that lets a crew member walk a rolling hallway without thinking also means the inner ear has quietly adjusted to expect movement. Take that movement away, and the body doesn't reset to zero. It notices the absence just as sharply as it noticed the motion. Ask any ferry worker or fisherman. Sudden stillness after days at sea doesn't always mean better sleep. Sometimes it means the opposite. But losing the rocking is the smallest piece of this. So what's actually keeping them up? The real answer starts with the mooring lines. A 100,000-ton ship never actually stops moving at a pier. Wind pushes on the hull. Wakes from harbor traffic nudge it sideways. And the tide rises and falls beneath it, sometimes several feet in a single night. The ship pulls gently against thick ropes tied to bollards, the heavy metal posts fixed into the dock. Those ropes creak. They snap taut. They groan under the load. Picture a rope swing holding a heavy adult, tightening and easing with every gust. Now multiply that by a hull 3 football pitches long. As the tide shifts, those lines need adjusting, sometimes more than once a night. That means deck crew are out on the mooring stations at 2 or 3 a.m., hauling winches while everyone else tries to sleep. Cabins near those stations sit just meters away. It isn't loud like an alarm, it's persistent, it's irregular, and that unpredictability is exactly what keeps a sleeping brain half alert. Then there's the part nobody puts in the brochure. Bunkering. Refueling a cruise ship isn't like filling a car. A single call can mean pumping over 200,000 gallons of heavy marine fuel straight through hoses into the hull. For safety, this almost always happens overnight while passengers are ashore or asleep and the pier is quiet. The pumps run for hours. Generators work harder than they do at sea because shore power alone can't cover both hotel systems and fuel transfer at once. Crew quarters near the bunker stations don't get a quiet ship. They get one of the loudest nights of the week, and it lands right inside the rest window. So what happens when everything else piles on top of that? Turnaround day is the honest answer, and it's brutal. A single port stop can mean unloading 3,000 passengers and boarding 3,000 new ones inside 8 hours. At the same time, crews haul off a week's worth of garbage and load enough fresh food to feed a small town for the next 7 days. Provisioning trucks start arriving before dawn. Forklifts move pallets across the gangway. A single turnaround can mean loading 40 tons of produce, meat, and dry goods in under 6 hours. Deck crew run the mooring stations. Engineers monitor shore power. Housekeeping strips and resets thousands of cabins in a single shift. And security stays posted at the gangway around the clock, checking every crew member and passenger who steps aboard. By law, that access point never goes uncovered, day or night. The ship in port isn't resting. It's running 2 operations at once, arrivals and departures, faster than anything happening mid-ocean. Not every port is equal either. A small Caribbean call with a light tidal swing and minimal cargo can pass almost quietly. A major hub like Miami or Southampton, with heavy tides, back-to-back sailings, and constant fuel and freight traffic, turns into the loudest, busiest night of the entire week. The itinerary itself decides how bad the sleep will be, long before the ship even ties up. And here's the twist. At sea, the engines hold one steady load, and that produces a constant hum through the whole ship, almost like white noise. Docked, that hum disappears. In its place, generators cycling on and off, shore power connecting with an audible clunk, thrusters firing occasionally to hold position against a shifting current, even while the ship sits tied up. None of it runs on a fixed rhythm. It reacts to real conditions in real time. And a sleeping brain adjusts to steady noise far more easily than it adjusts to noise that keeps changing shape. There's a human layer too. Passengers coming back from shore excursions late at night don't stop being passengers just because the crew wants to sleep. Corridors near guest areas stay loud well past midnight. Laughter, luggage wheels, cabin doors closing at odd hours. All of it filters down through decks built for strength, not for soundproofing between passenger and crew zones. On a sea day, that traffic dies down early. In port, it can run until sunrise, right up against the moment bunkering ramps up on the other side of the same wall. So why don't crews just ask for a different cabin? Because there simply isn't time to look for one. So how loud does it actually get? Sound measurements taken inside crew quarters at a steady ocean cruise usually sit around 45 to 50 decibels, close to the hum of a quiet office. Docked with bunkering, mooring adjustments, and provisioning all running at once, that same cabin can spike past 65 decibels at irregular intervals through the night. That's the difference between a steady hum and a passing truck. And in port, it happens every 20 minutes instead of never, night after night, for as long as the ship stays tied up. This is where the rest rules of maritime crewing come in. Most crew are guaranteed a minimum of 10 hours of rest in any 24-hour period. But that time can legally be split into 2 blocks, and port days are exactly when that split gets used against them. A crew member might work the overnight bunkering shift, grab 3 hours of rest, then get called for a 6 a.m. delivery, followed by more duty before the ship sails that evening. On paper, the rule is met. In practice, it's fragmented into pieces too short to actually recover from. Sea days run on a fixed, predictable schedule, which makes uninterrupted sleep far easier to protect. It's the difference between 1 long meal and 5 scattered snacks. The calories might match. The satisfaction never does. There's a psychological layer stacked on top of all this. At sea, everyone on board is off the clock together. Passengers sleep. The ship is contained. The whole pace slows down. In port, the outside world reconnects. Trucks arrive. Agents come aboard. Customs officials walk the gangway. Dock workers move equipment at all hours. The ship stops being an isolated bubble and becomes, for one night, an extension of a working industrial port with the noise and traffic to match. And crew who've learned to sleep through the ocean's version of noise suddenly find themselves surrounded by a completely different one. Even the ship's own systems work against a good night's sleep in port. Galley teams restock walk-in freezers deep into the night. Laundry rooms run overtime, processing a full changeover of linen. Water tanks get topped off, which means pumps running near cabins that stay silent at sea. Waste systems get emptied, which means extra equipment on deck. Air conditioning units, no longer balanced against a steady ocean load, cycle differently once they're on shore power. Sometimes that produces a subtly different hum, one a well-rested crew member wouldn't notice, one an exhausted crew member absolutely will. None of this resets after one bad night either. A 4 or 5 month contract can include dozens of port calls, and each one draws from the same reserve of sleep. Fatigue doesn't spike once and disappear. It builds night after night until a rough stretch of port days starts to feel less like the exception and more like the baseline. Put it all together, and the picture is clear. It isn't one factor keeping crew awake in port. It's 7 things landing at once. The loss of familiar motion, the strain of mooring lines against a restless tide, the demands of bunkering, the physical grind of a full turnaround, the irregular hum of shoreside systems replacing the steady engine note of open water, the late-night traffic of returning passengers, and rest windows chopped into pieces too short to matter. None of it happens in isolation. It stacks all at once during the exact hours crew are supposed to be recovering from the week before. That groan through the wall was never the ship breaking down. It was mooring lines taking the strain of a 100,000-ton hull, fuel pumping through the hold, and half a dozen systems running at once, just to keep a machine the size of a small city sitting still at a dock. The engines went quiet hours ago. Almost nothing else did. And somewhere below deck, a crew member is still lying awake at 3 a.m., waiting for the one thing the open ocean gave them for free without even trying: stillness that actually feels like rest.